Buongiorno, buonasera, benvenuti amici, welcome my friends. My name is Vincenzo and welcome to that channel, and that channel is Fountain Pen Therapy. Welcome folks, welcome. I got another kind of a different video for you. I have over the last several years, collected many inks, and I'm trying to keep track of all those inks by ink swatching them and naming them and compiling them in different ways, and I'll show you that in a minute. And one of the questions I've always had was what best dip pen or method to use to not only to swatch the ink, but then to proceed to write the name of the ink, the brand of the ink, maybe the date that it was purchased, etc., etc. And I've gone through many writing instruments and many dip pens, and all to say is that I've tried several of them, and this video will review all of them and provide you with some insight into each so that you can make up your own mind as to which one you think would serve your purpose. And then I can tell you which one I think is the best one for my purposes that I've over the years experimented with, and now I finally have the solution. So that's what that video is all about. So without any further ado, Fountain Pen Therapy presents dip pens for ink swatching. Okay, so we're back. I think two things we need to look at. First of all, let me limit this video because dip pens can be used for all kinds of purposes. I mean, we have artists who can do all kinds of things with dip pens. You can do some, if you're a calligrapher, you can use dip pens for calligraphy. And if you're like me, which is a very simple task, as we shall see, simply to swatch an ink and write the name of that ink. And the beauty of a dip pen is you can go from ink to ink, wash out the nib, and go to the next one. Wash out the nib and go to the next one, as opposed to actually inking the pen, either with a converter or whatever filling system is available, and then really having to use many pens to swatch different inks. It becomes at one point not practical, if you will. So that's where I think I use dip pens, very limited. And I'd like to show you how I do that. First, we'll look at some ink swatching method or paper or notebooks, and then we'll take a look at the pens. So let's go to my overhead camera right away. And I'm going to show you here, I've got really, I know of three methods, if you will. The first one, which is my favorite really, is this Tomoe River Good Impressions journal. And the beauty of this journal is that it has the ink swatch square there, a little line here for brand, for the name, and for the date. So you can swatch 5 inks and go on that way. The notebook comes in different colors, so you can have a blue one for the blue inks, a red one for the red inks, etc., etc. It comes in 6, 7, 8 different colors. The only downside of this is that, of course, given that it's Tomoe River paper, you will not be able to use double sides. So you're constantly swatching on only one side, and there's a little bit of waste there. But that's the advantage, is you have it all in one book, and as opposed to having it, and you have it in very good paper as well. The second method over the years that I've used is these swatching cards. Okay, and what I do typically is I keep these are kind of like collector's card, or baseball cards, hockey card collecting, and I just swatch the card and keep the blues with the blues. There's various swatch cards available. There's the more recent ones from Waringle are over a kind of a little bottle, and it gives you a line for the various descriptions that you want to put in, and it's exactly these descriptions, or in this journal, these descriptions, that I need a dip pen that matches the ink, and that I could also show my viewers how the ink performs when writing. So these are different cards, and I mean, over the years I've seen various cards. There's also this Waringle Swatch book, which again has the little bottle with 2 lines so you can put in the description of the ink that you could use. Now, this one is not bad because I find the ink does perform very well, and you get a real sense of what that ink can do. But some of the regular cards, such as these ones, I think the inks would just appear much flatter on these cards. And that's why over the years, I've come to the conclusion that I want to see my ink swatching on Tomoe River paper. And that's why I end up using this. It's also because most of the paper that I use is really Tomoe River. And so there you have it. You can develop your own book, mind you, and use Rhodia and use Clairefontaine, use whatever paper you deem appropriate. You can make your own little squares. You can add those, and with a ruler and a pencil, I'm sure you can design every page accordingly. But I find these very handy. So they will all be down in the description, so you can use whatever method you deem appropriate. So let's put aside the notebook or the book, swatch books, and let's look at the dip pens, because after all, that is the focus of this video. Here is a series of dip pens that over the years I've used. Let's review them one at a time. The first one is this regular, or this, I don't know what they call this, and I should know the name, and if I find out, I will put it up on the screen. But these are these dip pen nibs that you can remove, okay, and insert, and you have a different widths and different sizes, so you can have a real thick one. I find myself usually using this one here, which has kind of got a big dot there, as you can see. This one's a little bigger than that one, and I either put it on this glass dip holder, or most of them are plastic or wood, such as these as well, and we'll take a look at those in a second. So that's one method, which is, I find, quite efficient. The other one is these, they call them automatic pens. We'll take a look at this. I have an automatic pen set with different widths that go very wide. This is the thinnest. It's the one is the thinnest in the collection that could serve a purpose. It can give you like a big stub there. We'll see if what that does. This is the folded pens that I use to swatch. We'll take a look at that in a second. Then you have a series of just normal nibs. And what you have here is you have the IRO-UTSUSHI from Pilot. You have the Sailor HOCORO, and you have, in the Sailor, you have 2 of them, one with the feed and one without the feed, and we'll see what the difference is. As you can see, this one has a feed to it, and this one came without a feed. You can buy the feed separately, or you can buy the feed with the nib, and both of these are stubs. I use stubs just because, except this one's a fine, I believe. It didn't come in different sizes. I like to use the stubs because it gives you kind of a better picture of what that ink can do. The next one are these Pilot parallel pens. And this one here is the thinnest of the collection, which is a 1.5, I believe. Yeah, this is the one. Actually, it's here. 1.5, and we'll take a look at how this performs. Then you have the KAKIMORI nib. Now this is the original KAKIMORI nib. As you can see, made out of metal. The ones I have are brass, and they're kind of indentations. There's kind of a line of grooves, if you will, where the ink can collect and you can write. This is the COLORVERSE SHUTTLE, which is kind of a takeoff on the KAKIMORI. And another takeoff on the KAKIMORI is this one, which is a Chinese clone that I bought from AliExpress, which I put into this big pencil holder or lead holder because I find it more comfortable. So these, we'll compare all these three to see which one performs and how they perform. Let me just put that there. Then, of course, you have the glass pen. In the glass pen, you have this one, which I believe is a MAJOHN with a plastic glass pen, if you will. It's a glass pen. You think it's glass, but it isn't. It's plastic. And again, the same principle. There are grooves there. The ink accumulates, and then you can write with those. And then you have an actual glass pen, okay, which I just recently bought, which I hope I did not. Very, very delicate. There you have it. I have all kinds, but this is the one I propose to do the testing with. So those are the candidates, and what I propose is that I just set up, and I've chosen the ink, and we will do some swatching and, well, some writing, and come up with a winner. Be right back. Okay, we're back. We're all set up. We've got the paper. Paper is Tomo River paper, 8 by 11. Whoops, my hands are dirty. And the ink that I've chosen, and I'll explain to you why. Not really the ink, it's more the bottle. I've chosen this Private Reserve Infinity Blue. The reason I chose this particular bottle for this exercise is that I can see where I'm dipping my pen, because it's got a very large opening. Okay, because I want to make sure, of course, that when I dip the pen, that I'm dipping the pen properly. And if the bottleneck is too small, then I can't see. That's really the only logic for using this ink. Okay. Now, this bothers me, so if you will, I'm going to remove that and just replace it. Okay, there we go. Okay, good. I think we're all set. We'll start one at a time. Okay, first is the classical dip pens, which are these. One is thicker than the other, I believe. One is B3 and the other one is a B5. So let's take a look at the thick one first, which is the B3. And we'll just close up a little bit so we can see what we're doing. So this is the, I'm going to say classic, I for lack of a better word, but classic, well, you're experiencing the problem as I see it. Classic, and there again, as you can see, it's not giving me the performance. Yeah, so it's either this dip pen is not giving me the line that it should. Okay, here we go. Classic B, this is a B3. I think it's too thick to write, but could be something to explore for swatching. But too thick to write with. Okay, one down. Next one. And maybe we should just wash it out, just in case there's some debris there preventing. I may not be doing this right, but I'm not an artist. So this is the classic dip pen. And this is a B5. I believe this is the smallest stub, if you will. You could go down to a much finer, but what I like about this one is you get to see the ink. You can also do some swatching, so you don't need a separate swatcher, especially if your swatches are limited in size. It's good for both, I would say to you. Okay? So let's just clean that out, put it aside. The next one is this. Never had great success with this. This is the automatic, the theory being that ink kind of traps in between there and somehow serves a purpose. We'll see what the result is. This is the as you can see, you have to know how to use this, and it's just not giving me I mean, I've given up on this. As you can see, I don't know how to use it, obviously, but it's not doing what I was hoping you would do. So, too finicky. Automatic pen doesn't work. Not for me, anyway. This is the Pilot IRO-UTSUSHI, if I'm pronouncing it. It is a fine nib. And this doesn't... I thought it had a reservoir in that little kind of, I don't know, reservoir there, but apparently it doesn't. So this is the Pilot IRO-UTSUSHI. It's very fine and does the job. But I find it a little too thin for my taste. But for those of you who want to swatch and see what and use fine nibs, well, this gives you a pretty good but there's no swatching for this nib. I mean, you could, I suppose, you know, do some fine swatches, but it's not ideal for swatching, just for writing. And that's the Pilot. The next one, very similar concept, is the Sailor HOCORO, but without the feed. And this is a stub. I find it too scratchy, and you see, it kind of gives up on you real quick. So at the beginning it's thick, and then as you keep writing, it doesn't give you enough line. You have to constantly ink. Barely write 2 words, as you can see. Just take an ink here a little bit. I think if it doesn't have the feed, it doesn't work properly in my view. You have to have a lot of patience. You have to keep dipping. Now, let's take a look at the same nib, but this time with that feed. What I like about it, it is a little scratchy. But lots of ink. It lasts quite a bit before having to redip. I would say to you that this lasts even more than the classic dip pen. I mean, I've written 3 lines here, and it's still going pretty strong. Can you do some swatching? Not really. I think it's meant for writing, no swatching. Whoops, I just noticed I have not been... Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. As you can see, I can write quite a bit with this, so I'll stop there. So that's a good candidate. Here is the parallel pen. Now the parallel pen, the problem with this parallel pen is that this is really meant for you to put a cartridge there, pilot cartridge, or maybe even a converter. I've seen this nib being put into an actual pen, the Opus 88 pen. So it gets impregnated quite a bit with the ink, and I find it when you wash out, going from ink to ink, there's not a complete wash out, if you will. So this is the, I'm sorry, I don't want to, here we go. This is the Pilot Parallel pen. So as you can see, it runs out of ink unless you really leave it there and let all this get impregnated with ink. It's really meant to accept the ink coming down, as opposed to, otherwise you have to keep dipping. And you barely can get one word in. So not great, as you can see. In my view, this is not a good candidate. Next, coming to the KAKIMORI styled dip pens. So let's dip that, make sure that. Now what I find about these, you got to be careful, because at the beginning, so this is the original. No, this is not the original. This is, sorry, this is the COLORVERSE SHUTTLE. Scratchy, but you can write several words without dipping. There are also the, for those who are a little more, you can get a thicker line, or a medium line, or a very thin line. And I guess you could use this for swatching, because you could, use it for a thick line for swatching, and then you can write the name of the ink. So the advantage is that with one instrument you can do both if you're looking for a small swatch. Now, what I don't know if you can see it, but it kind of scratched the paper there. It's very scratchy, this. Okay, and this washes out nicely, so that's the Colorverse Shuttle. Let's do the original KAKIMORI. This is the original KAKIMORI. What I noticed is the grooves are a little bit wider. The pen is a little bit less pointy. Whoa, sorry. You can see the shuttle is very, very pointy. Okay, so now this is the original KAKIMORI, I think it is. Sorry if I spelled this wrong. Less scratchy, but lots of ink. But I find there's an uneven flow. You know, so at the beginning, and you really, it's just at the beginning because you're putting down 3 or 4 words. You're putting the brand name of the ink and then the name of the ink. And, you know, if you're not careful, the first couple of words will be full of ink and thick. And then as you go along, it gets thinner. But again, the advantage of this one is that you can swatch or bend a little bit and get a smaller, or get a thin line, or get an even thinner line. So variety in line. This has got a rounder tip. So much smoother result. Okay, and I think depending on the material that you take in, I think one is smoother than the other. I chose brass because I think it's the smoothest of them all, if I'm not mistaken. But you can correct me on that if I'm wrong. So that's, let me just turn the page here. We'll remove that. Okay, what do we got here? Oh yes, now we got the Chinese version of that KAKIMORI. I say Chinese, I mean the box says IDEAPLUS on it, not much more, metal nib. And let's just see how this one performs. Again, it's the brass version. I think come in titanium, come in different. Okay, so this is the IDEAPLUS KAKIMORI clone. And I find it's the smoothest of the 3. It's also, it's kind of got a very rounded shape there. But I'm telling you, this is extremely smooth. And again, you have the option of getting a thicker line, thinner line, you know, and a much thinner line. So you have the option there. And it's swatchable. You can do some swatching with this if you're limited in your space. And you can get I'm still writing with this, so I can keep going. So I think it serves the purpose wonderfully. There you go. So that's the Chinese version. After that, we got the glass pens. Now, let's do the actual glass pen. And you got all kinds of quality here. This is a Chinese one. So, not the most expensive. I mean, you can spend hundreds of dollars on these pens. Generic glass pen. A little scratchy, but very even flow. Quite a bit. Of words. So long lasting. Now, can you do the same trick in terms of swatching? Not really. I don't think it's meant to swatch. And you can imagine that if you spend hundreds of dollars on a really nice one, you probably get even better results. So, very good, in my view. Very good option. Very thin line, though. Depending on tip of the pen, tip of the nib. I think you got somewhere a little thicker than others. And again, there's all kinds. And you got to be careful. The downside is glass chips easily. Especially if you use jars with water that are made out of glass and you shake it up and you bang. I've broken many nibs that way. So if you're going to use glass pens and use a jar that's made out of plastic, and you'll avoid the obvious. So that's the glass version. This is a MAJOHN, which is a plastic version. You can also put a converter or a cartridge in there. Now I said plastic glass pen. Okay, you'll know what I mean by that. Very good flow. And even. Not scratchy. But I find you see, I barely got through 2 lines. Then I have to not long lasting. It's less than the glass pen. But again, if all you're looking for is a couple of words, very good option. If you're looking to, write quite a bit with it, then you have to be patient. You have to constantly dip. Okay? So that's the plastic nib. Now, some people have suggested it's actually glass. I don't know what to tell you. It may be glass. I think it's plastic, but if it's glass, let me tell you, doing very well. Actually, I got another one. Let me pull another one which I think is plastic. Be right back. I'm back. You know what? I've got a feeling that this one here may very well be. This is plastic. So let's check out this plastic one. I think this is Delike. I forget the name of the... So... Again, very good flow. And even and smooth. Not scratchy at all. But after a while you will see, as you can see, it's getting very good option. It's not long lasting. For a few words. There you have it. It's running out. As you can see, the ink is slowly... It is a little messy because, you know, the ink kind of accumulates in that feed. But nonetheless, it works quite well. You can easily wash it out, you know, wash it out and use another ink. So there you have all the options. Which one did you prefer? Got a last minute add-on that I would like to go over. First of all, we took a look at the SPEEDBALL type of nibs, right? To do your, you know, it is a dip pen. And this particular SPEEDBALL that, and you saw, you know, the thicker versions. Of course, you can always go and get the smallest version. They even have fine nib. I just find that the nibs that go with these SPEEDBALLs are not the greatest quality. Then, because of a viewer suggested that I use the SPEEDBALL parts and replace that nib with a real, you know, a standard nib, if you will. And so I thought about this particular SPEEDBALL. I removed this section, and I removed this section, and put it on a stub Yowo nib, as you can see. So effectively, those two pieces serve to trap ink, and they're kind of a mini reservoir for the ink, but I get to choose the nib that I want, which is a stub or whatever other nib is a number 6 size. I think it works better with a number 6 size than it does with a number 5. Now these pieces are, you know, kind of come off easily. So it happened to me in one of my recaps that when you go into the water to shake off the ink, you know, you might lose one of those pieces. But that's just a question of, you know, I'm not good at this stuff, but you can kind of tighten them to make sure they stay on. It does mean that you're sacrificing a nib. In my case, I'm sacrificing a Yowo nib, and I don't mind at all, frankly. So that's going to be the add-on. And why don't we take some ink and see how this works. So I've got Ongdian bluish gray here. I'm going to dip that pen, and as you can see, it should work, unless I didn't dip it enough. So this is the do it yourself. Now, I just want to put it nicely inside. There we go. I think it needs a little more ink. So what is it? DIY dip pen. Okay. It's not bad, I gotta tell you. It certainly traps enough ink to be able to write quite a few words. It doesn't. So let's just write here: the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Now, what I find, unlike a feed, the feed does feed more ink consistently, so you could see that the writing does have, it's not as smooth and it's jumpy all over the place, just because the ink that's drawn into flowing into that nib, it's not a perfect flow. But it's certainly another dip pen alternative. So I thought I mentioned that. The other thing that I want to mention, and I'm going to just put some pictures here, is, of course, this drill log nib. Now, this drill log nib is going for, well, you see the price on the screen. It's just too expensive for me to spend, hundreds of dollars on a nib that I will use just for swatching an ink. So for me, it's not an alternative. It certainly is an alternative, an expensive one, but for an artist, how good these drill log nibs are, I don't know. Now, Drill Log did reach out to me and asked whether or not I'd be at the San Francisco show because they wanted to show me the pen. I told them that I would not be attending the San Francisco show, but that I would be more than willing to review their pen. They can send it to me. I would pay for the postage and send it back to them. Don't want the nib, just so that I could show my viewers because I was doing this review. And I didn't hear from them. So, you know what? Too bad. And I'm certainly not going to dish out $200-300 for a dip pen. I think it's might be a nice product, but it's not in my cards. If any of you do have that pen, please let me know. Send me a comment. Let me know how it's working out for you. And it certainly could make my top 4 or top 5. But, I wasn't going to spend the money to test. So that's going to be forever a mystery, at least to me, until one of my viewers tells me otherwise. So there you have all the candidates, and we'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back. Let's take a look at my top 4. My number 4 would be a glass pen. Now, this is not the most expensive glass pen. So, number 4. But the concept of a glass pen is a very enticing one. It's an excellent design. And if you buy an expensive one, it can have excellent performance. The downside is that they are fragile. And if you want one that writes properly, it can be expensive. The ink reservoir, by that I mean whatever ink gets trapped in those lines, is 7 on 10, I would say. Okay. but it's my number 4. Let me just be careful to wash that out properly and not bang it against the the glass jar. The number 3 on my list, and some people might disagree, is the KAKIMORI style nib. What I mean by that, because we have 3 choices right now that I presented to you in any event. It can be that less expensive Chinese version, the Colorverse, Shuttle, or the original. Frankly, I prefer this Chinese version. Why, you say? Because it's cheaper. The advantage with that is that the ink reservoir I would say to you is probably 8 on 10. It gives you a variety of lines. For those of you who know what they're doing, you could get a thick line, a thinner line, and a very thin line. Okay? So you get the variety in lines. What I find, it's not consistent. So from, depending on where you are, you go from thick to thin, and it's just not consistent. If you buy the original, there can also be an issue of cost of the original. But it is a concept that works very nice. Thank you. Now, number 3, where is it? I would say that my my third favorite would be just a classic dip pen. Now, I have one amongst many, okay? So, or the number 2, I should say. Number 2, and let me just trap that. As you can see right there, it can give me, so I will call this the Speedball. The advantage is that you get a variety of nibs. Very cheap. Okay. The reservoir is probably one of its downsides. It's an iffy proposition. Depending on how you dip that pen, I'm not sure. I would give it a 6 on 10. I think that if you use my do-it-yourself version, is probably a better alternative. But it's a kind of an unstable do-it-yourself hack, okay? So, but you can see how, you feel so much more comfortable writing with it, but, it could fall apart on you, right? So, Okay. My number one, and the one I would recommend, is, and I got the wrong one, this one is the HOCORO without the feed. I would recommend the one with the feed, which of course is this one. Okay. So my number one choice, is it? I keep forgetting how to HOCORO, but with the feed. One, writes like a standard nib. There is some variety. Whoa, sorry about that. I just pushed too much. That's one of the downsides, by the way. We'll get to that in a second. Variety, I think it comes in fine. You can get it in a stub and you can get it in a fude nib. Feed, in terms of sale, there's some difficulty there in the sense that you just question why they don't just sell it with the feed right off the bat and forget about the rest. So now some people are stuck with it without the feed and they're going to buy the feed, and to get it ordered it costs a fortune to get it delivered. But having said that, I think this is overall a fairly inexpensive option. The reservoir is also in my view 10 on 10, well 9 on 10. Nothing is 10 on 10 with these nibs. In terms of the downside is if you push, you can get some baby's bottom, I guess you can call it. That's what happened there. But other than that, it's my winner. So there you have it. This little thing can do magic. Yeah, it's going to be my number one swatcher. Not swatcher, but put it this way. This and my folded pen are going to be my tools of choice for my swatching collection. These two. There you have it. That's it, folks. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that was useful. It'll help you make some choices. And you know what? If you got any other suggestions, let me know. What do you think? Maybe you've got another solution. I'd be interested. Be good. Enjoy your pens. Enjoy your collection. And be well.